Hello, my name's Maya, and this is my recap on week 6 of The Artist's Way. Thought I'd just jump on here and talk a little about my experience with this week. What I liked about it, what I didn't. Also for myself to look back on for if I when I do this in the future, at the end of this 12-week adventure. Is it 12 or 13? I'm not sure. So I'll start by saying that this week's topic is called Recovering a Sense of Abundance. It says, this week you'll tackle major creative blocks, money. You are asked to really look at your own ideas around God, money, and creative abundance. The essays will explore the ways in which your attitudes limit abundance and luxury in your own life, and you'll be introduced to accounting, a block-busting tool for clarity and use of your funds. This week may feel volatile. So I'll start by saying this week has been quite challenging for me outside of the Artist's Way book, and perhaps that's played into a part why I haven't really connected with this chapter as well as I have the previous ones. I also think this block around money is something that I've visited a couple of years ago, and I will still say I still have a block of money. It's a little bit different to what it looked like a couple of years ago, but it still exists. But I guess to say that some of the ideas in this chapter maybe weren't as impactful to me because they were things I'd already been thinking about a couple of years ago, and now it just kind of feels like just going over the ideas. But yeah, so there were still a lot of things in this chapter that I really enjoyed. I will say that I enjoyed the chapter text a lot more than the activities and tasks in this week's chapter, but I'll get to that. I think a good place to start is just breaking down the chapter and what's going on. So it starts off with this lady named Nancy declaring, "I'm a believer, I just don't believe God gets involved with money." Although she doesn't recognize it, Nancy carries two sabotaging beliefs. She believes not only that God is good, too good to do money, but also that money is bad. Nancy, like many of us, used to overhaul her God concept in order to fulfill recovering her creativity. So I will say, if anyone sees this, that this book does rely heavily on a belief of God or the universe or manifestation, and this chapter kind of builds on that. I think it's the last chapter which talks about this idea of manifestation, or the one before that. So this chapter's building on that people, when they talk about manifesting, and if they have a tie to God or a universe, or they tie it to morality, they think money isn't included in that, and that it doesn't really partner with creativity. I'm really nervous. This is my first time making a video, and I'm subconsciously holding my breath, so I keep having to do big exhales so I can breathe. It goes on to say that we cling to our financial concerns as a way to avoid not only our art but also our spiritual growth. Our faith is in the dollar. I have to keep a roof over my head, we say. Nobody's going to pay me to be more creative. Yeah, so the chapter starts with just, again, this idea that money and creativity, a block we have is that we can't be paid for our creativity, and that even if we do believe in manifestation, how do we believe in it? If we believe that creativity is something we can't get paid for, or something that God or the universe doesn't involve themselves in, then we're not really, we don't see it as possible to manifest that outcome, I guess. That's what I take away from it. which I do resonate with. A couple of years ago, I had a block of money when it came to, I guess more obtaining it, and then I was able to obtain a little bit of money, or actually not, like a reasonable money, and then that money I used to move cities and change my life quite drastically, but not drastically enough. And yeah, one thing I told myself is when I moved to the new city, and this is a reason I've been doing the Artist Way, is that I'll have proof of security after I've hit these financial goals. And then when I hit them, that goalpost kind of moved, and it became like the number just changed, because I guess my creative block is exactly what this has said, that in my head this idea of creativity doesn't pair with financial abundance, which is something I'm working on in this chapter. So it goes on to say, we've tried to be sensible as though we have any proof that God is sensible, rather than see if the universe might have supported some healthy extravagance. Yeah, so again, this idea about manifestation, and that it goes on later in the chapter. I think it makes more sense. It starts talking about virtue, which I really relate to. But here are some other quotes that stuck out to me. As you expect God to be more generous, God will be able to be more generous to you. What we really want to do is what we are really meant to do. When we do what we are meant to do, money comes to us, doors open for us, we feel useful, and the work we do feels like play to us. Great line, fully agree with it. The next chapter jumps into luxuries. I'm just trying to find this idea of virtue. It might be in the next part. Yeah, I think it's at the end. So the next part jumps into luxury, and the argument that the book makes is that this idea of denying ourselves Actually, I don't think this page does jump into virtue. I can't remember, but I'm going to talk about it. It's a connection I made in this chapter. Might talk about it previously in the book. Can't find it in the chapter. In this book, it does mention this idea of virtue, that good things, like we deny ourselves things in the name of virtue. I think it was in the previous chapter. Might be in this chapter somewhere. And then in this book, it kind of plays up that, and this idea that it says it here, I should be working side of themselves that discourages creative pleasure. And it goes on to say, I can't find it. I can't find it. Anyway, there's this idea of virtue in the book, which talks about how we deny ourselves ideas and what we want in the name of virtue, which is something I resonate with, and I kind of link to this book a little bit. This idea that virtue equals hard, and if something comes easy, like being creative, or is enjoyable, then it's not worth doing. Things that are worth doing are hard, and things that come easy are like cheap. It talks about a little bit in this chapter. And then it talks about, in this section about luxuries, that it starts with us denying ourselves simple luxuries. So that can be something like seeing a shirt you really want to get, but you say it's not sensible to buy it, or a creative career you want to pursue, but it's not sensible, it's not financially viable. You come up with all these ideas around sensibility and what's right and what isn't, and in a way, for me at least, what's virtuous to do and what is it. And it goes on to here, I should be working side of ourselves that discourages creative pleasures. When we put a stopper on our capacity for joy by declining the small gifts of life, we turn aside the larger gifts as well, which I resonate with. I've denied myself a lot of things in my life, or said I will get these things for myself when I achieve this imaginary goalpost. And what I was saying, when I moved cities and I achieved a little bit of financial stability, and I told myself, oh, when I reach this financial stability, then I will do what I really want to do, even if I don't have that fully figured out yet. That's when I will put the energy into figuring that out. Yet the reason I started in this book is, even with that financial security, the mindset doesn't change. I could have X amount of money in my bank account, and yet the mindset is still, it's not enough to make the jump. And partially it's because of security, but when you have enough money to make a reasonable gamble on yourself and you still choose not to, then it's something else in addition. And the continuing moving of the goalposts is just a cope we use to never do what we want to do. And when it talks about luxuries, it says when we first start denying ourselves creative pleasures, because we don't believe those creative pleasures hold as much value as working or whatever else we attribute to it. Then that grows and it impacts us on a larger scale than it might start off as that we deny ourselves a paint set or time to do painting, and then it grows into, we suddenly forfeit this idea of a painting career or whatever. I'm just going through the lines I kind of highlighted and stuck with me. Those of us who the stripe with the workflow completely will find ourselves in lives that feel barren and devoid of interest, no matter how many meaningless things we have filled them with. Totally agree and understand with that part. Before I started this Artist Way book, I actually went on a holiday. It was great, or it was enjoyable, but something I went for quite a bit of time. I work a 9 to 5. I went for a month, and I found that even though I was gone for a month and I was in this beautiful place with nature and just, it was quiet, it was gorgeous, it's everything I wanted or thought I needed on vacation, I was finding that you kind of, when you deny yourself for so long your creative needs or your creative selves, you do get very devoid. And for me, it came out in a lot of apathy. And so even though I was on this beautiful trip, I didn't really feel anything, and I didn't really enjoy it in the way that I knew I usually would. The things that kind of got a rush out of me were like when I did really touristy, adrenaline junkie stuff, but everything else, just being in nature, was lovely, but it didn't spark joy in the way that I knew it should be doing. And that's kind of when I went, oh, I think we've got a bigger problem than I've considered. And I felt that way in other parts of my life, even with creativity too now, that because I think I've pushed it away for so long and denied myself so many things, that even now, the things I know I enjoy don't really spark joy in the same ways. So I really resonate with that line, and I think it's something more people do to themselves than they care to admit, and it can kind of hit you. Partially it's burnout, but it's also, I think, more than just burnout, or maybe, burnout's a part of it too. Like, they share very similar features. And that's kind of what got me into the book. But I just wanted to highlight that, because when I read that line, I went, oh, yeah, so true. Currently there. And then it goes on to what gives us true joy. This is a question to ask concerning luxuries, and for each of us, the answer is different. It goes on to describe what luxury is defined in the book. It's not defined by how expensive something is. It's defined by things that give us joy, and more so things that we kind of have access to in the everyday setting. So one of the examples is this lady she uses raspberries as an example. That she loves fresh raspberries, and she loves how easily pleased she is. For the cost of a pint of raspberries, she buys herself an experience of abundance. For Alan, music is a great luxury. A musician, when he was younger, he has long denied himself the right to play. Like most locked artists, he suffers from a deadly duo, artist anorexia and prideful perfectionism. There were no practice shoes for this player. He wanted to be at the top, and if he couldn't be there, he wouldn't be anywhere near his beloved music. And then it goes on to say how he started having fun with playing music instead of trying to make something perfect and incredible. For a blocked artist, it takes time to work on imagining ourselves having luxury. Luxury is a learned practice for most of us. Block creators are often the Cinderellas of the world. Focus on others at the expense of ourselves. We may even be threatened by the idea of spoiling ourselves for once. So the artist states, which this is like what the book asks you to do, I think, at the first kind of building blocks to ideas of luxury. I've really gone into cheese boards lately. Actually, in this chapter, I was kind of thinking this week, what's something that I like a luxury? Because it's true, I was thinking about it. I was like, I don't really know, and then I thought of cheese boards, and I was like, I'll just make myself like a mini cheese board, and nothing crazy, nothing like super expensive, but it brought me a lot of happiness just having that on the weekend. It goes on to talk about creative living and the luxury of time. Creative living requires luxury of time, which we carve out for ourselves, even if it's 50 minutes for a quick morning pages or a 10-minute mindful bath after work. Creative living requires the luxury of space for ourselves. Yeah, which is true. I'll add to that though, I think it's mindful space for ourselves. In this day and age, you can just get stuck in a bit of a scroll ball. I don't think it's not talking about that. It's talking more about like mindfully spending time with each other, which is something this book also talks about. Again, going back to the artist states, it's not just being alone, it's doing something and being fully immersed in it, whether that's cooking a meal, going to a museum, which is what I did this week. For my artist day, I went to a museum, which was really fun. I really liked it. It was really cool. It's quite inspiring. Other things I've highlighted is beware of silly as a word you toss around. Serious art is born from serious play. That resonates with me because a lot of the stuff I like doing is quite silly. And I think I've used that as a reason, going back to the idea of sensibility, trying to be sensible. It even says here, like, creativity isn't sensible. Creativity is not and never has been sensible. Why should it be? Why should you be? Do you think there is some moral virtue in being a martyr? And I think that's a great way of putting it, because I think my brain thinks so. I'm sure a lot of other people's do too. But yeah, the whole point of this book is to challenge your belief structures and kind of break out of these prisons we build for ourselves, which is great, but it's very practical advice. And again, this chapter has probably been one of the least impactful chapters for me so far in the book, but good nonetheless. I've had a bit of a full-on week, so I have been trying to reread it as much as I can to get the information really to sink in, and those were kind of the highlights for me. it goes on with the exercises from the week, and I did not enjoy the exercises this week. I partially think that's because I just wasn't in a good mood this week. I did keep to my morning papers, which were really good, and I've made a big commitment to do them a bit more mindfully, because I find that I do, when I have stuff I probably need to dive in and to write down, that's when I avoid writing them. But I found that these exercises, just even reading them, none of them really, I felt like resonated with the chapter as much as the previous ones had. When I was doing the previous week's exercises, I felt like I was having real breakthroughs, even just in the exercise. I was like, oh, like I'm discovering stuff about myself, or I'm discovering I don't know myself as well in this aspect. But with these ones, I was just kind of like, oh, yeah, whatever. The one that I'm working on, which is like the book asks you to have an image book where you can do like drawings or print out images of crazy ideas you have, and asks you to do that. So I did a little bit of that this week. It asked you like to list your favorite things and like get rid of stuff and to go baking, do some baking and stuff like that. So I did, I guess, maybe 1, 2, 3, like 5 of the exercises. Yeah, but they just didn't hit like they have previously. So I didn't really enjoy the task this week, but that's okay. So maybe they'll resonate at a different time. And that's it. That's kind of the chicken for week 6. I am enjoying doing this book, and there's a lot of good information in here. I was listening to this on my phone for an audio book, but I actually went and bought the physical book this week, which has been really good. So I'm currently want to go back through the chapters and highlight and make notes of the things that I was noting in the audio book. But yeah, it's really good. It was funny enough, this book was actually quite difficult for me to get where I live. It's not something that I think is frequently in stock with any bookstores near me. So when I found it, it was quite serendipitous, because I told myself, I'm going to go to this one little bookstore that I like is next to where I live, and if they don't have it, then I just will order it online, but I'll just go in and see. And they had one copy kind of squished away on this little bookshelf, and I felt really embarrassed grabbing it, and I was like, why do I feel embarrassed buying this book? Is it because it's a bit self-helpy? Is it because it's artistic? And I kind of thought about it. I think it was because I was kind of admitting, buying the physical book was admitting that I, wanted to nurture my creativity, which for some reason I felt was really embarrassing. Our brain says crazy stuff to us. So when I was buying the book, I was like closing my eyes and making a big deal about it, and just was like, yep, just hand it over. But I'm happy I got the physical book, because I was finding the audio book, the information just wasn't sinking in. And being able to highlight and just have a quick reference point is really great. So yeah, that's week 6, and I'm going to keep updating with the following weeks. Yeah, that's it.